Thanks for joining us on this chilly Commonwealth of Virginia morning. And my name is Mark with Blue Ridge Sentinel LLC. And today what I want to talk about is one of my passions, revolvers. This is an introduction to revolvers. I have a lot of experience. I've carried a gun professionally for over a decade. I've taught Marines, police officers, and civilians alike how to shoot. While YouTube is not a substitute for professional training in person, I think we can cover some pretty interesting stuff that would shed some light on some of the questions that routinely are asked regarding revolvers. So stay tuned, we're gonna get into it. First, before we get started, I wanna go over the 4 weapon safety rules that everybody should know. If you haven't heard this before, make sure you pay attention. Treat, never, keep. Treat all weapons as if they were loaded, which means if this thing right here, this revolver is not loaded, it's not loaded, treat it as if it is. Never point the weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot. Keep your finger, this is unloaded, keep your finger straight and off the trigger, so off the trigger until you're ready to fire, and keep your weapon on safe until you intend to fire. There is a 5th special rule that is not normally included in that, but that is know your target and what is beyond it. So today we're shooting into a berm, there's a hill behind the berm, we're all good in the hood, so no issues there. Just decided that you're gonna purchase a firearm and you decide to get a revolver. So you go to the gun store, do all the paperwork, do the background check, pick up the firearm, bring it home. Never shot a gun before maybe, or maybe you have and you just have never had a really good introduction, or you're thinking about getting a gun. What we're gonna cover today is what a revolver is compared to a semi-automatic pistol, how they work, how to use them, the fundamentals of marksmanship, how to do reloads, and all that kind of cool stuff. So we're just gonna cover that. This is for entertainment purposes only. Like I said, a YouTube video is not a substitute for in-person training. All right, so let's talk about this first pistol here. This is a unloaded Smith & Wesson Model 10. This is a .38 special revolver. This is a common gun that has served civilians and law enforcement and the military alike for a century. So this is a 6-shot revolver. And the way it works is you have the gun like this, right? So you have your cylinder release right here. So you push this forward, take your other finger, and you push the cylinder out. So the cylinder's open, you put your rounds in here, you fire all 6 rounds, and then you turn it upside down and you press the ejector rod right here. And that's how you empty your casings. So this revolver is double action. And what that means, like I said, this is unloaded. I'm going to dry fire this revolver. You shouldn't do that without like snap caps or empty casings in there because it can damage the gun, they say. But I mean, Hakuna Matata, we're going to do it for instructional purposes only. So double action revolver means that every time you pull the trigger, the hammer does 2 actions. The hammer comes back and it goes forward when you pull that trigger. Now you can also fire this single action by cocking the hammer. So now you see that the trigger, when you cock the hammer, goes back, right? So it already did one function of going back. So now it's single action. So you pull the trigger and all the hammer does is that single action of going forward. So double action, again, hammer comes back when you pull the trigger and it goes forward. Single action is you just pull the trigger and it goes forward. So what if you have this gun and you cock it, right? But you don't want to fire it. So how are you going to get that hammer forward? This is one of the things I don't like about revolvers is there's no decocker included. Now, if Sam Colt wanted a decocker, he would have put it on the pistol. I get it. No, I totally understand. But a lot of folks who are not super familiar with revolvers, this is a pretty hard task for them to do. So you have it cocked, right? And if you pull this trigger, the hammer's going to go forward. So say you have a round in there, you don't want to fire it. What you're going to do is you're going to put your thumb on the spur of the hammer, and you're going to pull the trigger a little bit while you keep your hand on that spur. You're going to ride it home a little bit, then you're going to let go of the trigger. And what that does is it allows the hammer to go forward without firing the gun. If your finger's not on the trigger, it's not going to go off. So halfway, ride it home. Watch that again, slow. Halfway, pull the trigger a little bit, keep pulling maybe. Hear that? You hear that click too? So you want to do this pointed at, not up in the air, but it's just me and the trees out here in the middle of nowhere. So you're just riding it home and releasing it, but you want to point that down when you do that. But because the camera's here, I'm not going to do that. All right, so that's single double action. That's a Smith & Wesson Model 10. This is your most average handgun out there. This is a K-frame revolver, which is their medium frame. So it's like a medium, like basically Glock 19 version of this genre of the Smith & Wesson firearm. There are some revolvers out there that are single action only. And like this Heritage Rough Rider here, this is a 22 revolver. This is unloaded. And there's a lot of clockwork going on there, a lot of mechanics in these things. This revolver here can only be fired if you pull the hammer. So you have to pull the hammer back. It doesn't have double action. This is a single action only firearm. See that? So same thing applies here. Say you cock it, you don't want to shoot. You're gonna have to ride the hammer and let it go safely down. So you saw how that Smith & Wesson cylinder release worked. Well, on this Colt, what you have to do to release the cylinder is you have to pull back instead of push forward, and then you push the cylinder open with your other hand. So Colts go backwards, Smith & Wessons go forward. And then there's Ruger, which I don't have a Ruger firearm, but it's just a button that you press to open the cylinder. Here is another common revolver. This is a Rossi, and so the way Rossis work is just like the Smith & Wesson. This is unloaded, so you push forward, and then the release comes open, right? Just like that. So you push forward on the release, cylinder comes out. And this is also a double action revolver. So you pull the trigger, and it does two things, or you can cock it and pull the trigger. All right, so let's talk about our fundamentals of marksmanship. This is an unloaded revolver right here. All right, so our first fundamental of marksmanship is stance. So we want to kind of have a relaxed stance. I like to put my left foot forward. I'm a right-handed shooter. I put my left foot forward, and I kind of lean into it a little bit. And this is what's called commonly in law enforcement the interview stance. So this is how you would normally talk to a person, right? So you're talking, you're dealing with somebody, you have your left foot forward. So that way if somebody pushes you, you can come back on your left leg and you have a little bit more stability. So you want your feet roughly shoulder width apart. You're facing the target with your body, and you're gonna, so that's stance. Second fundamental is grip, and grip is established at the holster. So you're gonna reach back to your holster, and you want to have a good grip on the revolver. So I'll show you that real quick. This is how I drew the weapon. I drew it with my finger straight and off the trigger. You do not want to draw this and immediately go to the trigger. You want to draw your firearm and have your finger out of the holster and draw, right? See that? My finger naturally just goes right along the frame of the revolver. So you're gonna have a full grip around the revolver here, just like this. Your thumb is just gonna be behind the cylinder release. So you can see that. Thumb is behind the cylinder release. There's nobody behind me. I'm in the middle of the woods and the revolver is unloaded. I'm gonna take my support hand, so that's your other hand, is gonna support the revolver by going your right here where your wedding ring is, and the palm and your fingers meet is gonna hit these knuckles here. So those are just gonna go right in here, just like that. And they're gonna fold over your other hand. And this is how you hold a revolver. So you got your shooting hand here, your strong hand, and your support hand is just gonna cup right around it. And you're gonna wanna tuck your thumbs down with a revolver. So tuck your thumbs down and come up. So now that you know that, when you draw your revolver, it's gonna look like this. So you're drawing, and then right around here, you can shoot here if you need to. Say you're in an altercation. You wanna immediately pivot your pistol up. And then once you get past a certain point, you don't ever wanna put your hand in front of the barrel, but you get past a certain point, you can marry, like right here, you can marry your hands together, and then you can punch out. Now you don't wanna be all the way locked out like a weirdo. You just wanna have it so that you bring the pistol up to your face. You bring the pistol up to your face, and then you can start engaging the target. So again, what that's gonna look like slowly, you're gonna draw, fingers outside the trigger, you're rolling, you can engage here if you want to, and then you're gonna marry your hands here, and you're gonna punch out and bring the pistol up to your eyes. All right, so now let's talk about sight alignment. All right, so we have our target here. So we just drew our firearm, and we pulled it out, and we got both our hands married, and got our fingers good to go. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our sights, You're gonna line them up with the target. So sight alignment is lining them up. So what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that your front sight is in between the notch in the rear. You want equal height and equal light. So you want that front sight to sit in the middle, and it needs to be equal height to the rest of the sights in the back. Hopefully this is showing well on the camera, but that's what it looks like. So we got sight alignment, we got sight picture. So sight alignment is when, you know, you're marrying those sights together. You're aligning your sights on your revolver. Sight picture is the relationship between those sights and the target. Now, when it comes to trigger control, when you put your finger on the trigger, you want to just put the very pad of your finger on the trigger, and then you want to kind of come straight back into your palm. Forgive my hands, they're a little jacked up from doing stuff, but you want to bring your finger straight back. You don't want to over grip, and then if you tighten your fist, you'll notice that it moves a little bit, right? And that's going to make your rounds go left if you're a right-handed shooter. It'll go the opposite for left-handed, obviously. So what you want to do is you want to bring that trigger finger straight back, just like that. And you don't want to see that? So the gun moves if you do it too hard. So straight back, let it surprise you. Now with a revolver, think about it not as necessarily pressing the trigger, but rolling the trigger. There's a lot of movement here. So what you want to do is just kind of think about rolling it. These are hard to shoot for new shooters because the triggers are heavy and they're long. Now, if you do single action, there's a lot less movement, right? So your shots can potentially be a little bit more accurate. So this is beneficial if you're at distance or if you have time in order to cock it. But remember, if you do that, you're going to have to decock it at some point. So you got to get familiar with decocking it when it's unloaded. So finger's going straight back, and that's how that works there. When you marry your hand on here, your shooting hand focuses almost only on squeezing the trigger straight back, right? And then your other hand is focused on supporting the firearm and keeping it where it needs to be. After trigger control, we have follow through. So we have our trigger control. So we're good. We can pull our trigger. Everything's fine. So follow through is when you're shooting, you keep the weapon. You don't immediately, it's not the cowboy movies where they're like bang, bang, you know, where they're exaggerating recoil and doing it all themselves. What you want to do is when you squeeze the trigger and that round goes off, slowly bring that hammer back, control everything. That's what follow through is. So if you're trying to stop an adversary or Sasquatch or whatever the case may be, you want to keep your sights on target, you want to press the trigger, keep those sights on, and then if you have to do follow-up shots, it's a lot easier than if you're like, bang, oh, did I hit what I'm aiming at? Oh, shoot. You know what I mean? You want to keep your sights on target and control that trigger for follow-up shots. That's follow-through. And with follow-through, so sight alignment, sight picture, trigger control, and then follow through. See that? I'm not bang. Oh, wait. Oh, bang. You know, you want to slow, steady squeeze, control everything, and keep it on target. So let's do some shooting here. So our weapon is pointed in a safe direction. We're going to use our cylinder release. We're going to open it up, pull that cylinder out. Going to point it down because gravity is our friend. And then we're going to place one round in each chamber of the cylinder. And this is 38 special. This is what the rounds look like. It's just a big hunk of lead, 158 grains with some powder behind it and a primer in the back. You're going to place each round in the cylinder until you get to 6. Super easy to count that high. I mean, close that cylinder up. All right. So we have our target there. Let's move a little bit closer for instructional purposes only. We draw our weapon. We have our good stance. We have good grip on the draw. So we're going to bring the pistol up, sight alignment, sight picture, line up the sights, slow, steady squeeze, slow, steady squeeze. See that? That's how it's done. All right, I'm shooting through the camera, so I'm not, like, I'm looking through the camera as I'm shooting, so I'm not that great right now, but you get the idea, right? All right, so we're empty. That's all 6 shots. It's not a bad group for shooting through the eyes of a camera. So we're still looking at our adversary. We fired our 6 shots. What we're going to do is we're going to open the cylinder with this hand. So pushing forward on the cylinder release, your support hand is going to come over with your 2 fingers and push that cylinder open. We're going to turn it to where this hand is free, and we're going to press our cylinder release. You don't need to smack it. The way this was designed, it's designed to use the thumb. So they say you can smack it with your support hand if you want to. Get super positive ejection. I'm not opposed to that. But now your cylinder's empty and you repeat the process. You load it back up, close the cylinder, side alignment sight picture, and engage the target. So obviously you can grab 1 round at a time and put it in there, but as you saw earlier, that takes a while. So some cool pieces of technology that you can get that are pretty quick are something called a speed strip. This is one that's staggered, so it holds 6 rounds. It actually holds 7, believe it or not, but I just keep 6 in here because this is a 6-shot revolver. So you take your speed strip, you put 3 in here, you rip it away, put 3 in here, rip it away, and now you're loaded. So you got your 6 shots. So let's talk briefly about different types of ammunition. Like you saw earlier, we were shooting that 158 grain solid lead round, flat nose. This is a hollow point ammunition. I believe this is 125 grain plus P. So plus positive plus P means just extra powder. So it should have a higher velocity. Not only that, it's a lighter bullet too. So if it's lighter, it can travel faster. So we got a chronograph set up there. I'm going to shoot roughly 4 or 5 yards away with the same Smith & Wesson 38 Special Model 10. We're going to shoot these different rounds and I'll show you the different velocities. So first, we're going to use that 158 grain lead nose and shoot it into our chronograph, see what we get. 681 feet per second. That's not very fast. I mean, there's air rifles that do the same distance, the same feet per second, the same velocity. However, that's a 158 grain pill. So that's very low velocity. So, you know, you're just relying on sheer weight for that projectile. All right, now let's do this 38 plus P. This is from Remington. 813, so a lot higher velocity. So just pretty interesting how you can have the same type of ammunition that fits in the same gun, but you get totally different results. I'm at the 25-yard line, so this is pretty far away. However, I'm not going to shoot at the paper, which is 25 yards. I'm going to shoot at the steel, which is a little bit further. I'm loaded with that 158 grain lead round, and I'm going to put this in single action to demonstrate that because you're just pulling the hammer back and you only have to focus on hitting that trigger, that is, you know, you don't have to have that full, long, steady squeeze. It's a lot easier to shoot these at distance when you put it in single action, which is that. All right, I hope you found that video informative. I had enjoyed doing it. I'm a big fan of revolvers. Semi-automatic pistols are awesome. There's a lot more information out there about revolvers. There's a lot of details I didn't cover, but I'm sure if you do enough research, you can find stuff. But I just basically covered the basics of, for a new shooter, what you need to know about your firearm and, you know, how it works and operates. These are very reliable. They're good shooters if you train with them and you have a lot of experience behind them and rounds fired. Super simple to use. The good thing is it's either loaded or it's not. There's no round in the chamber that you got to worry about or anything like that. I'm a big fan of revolvers. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you share with your folks. Let other people know about the channel. We're brand new. And make sure you subscribe and like and comment and all the good things. So we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for joining us on Blue Ridge Sentinel.